The book of Proverbs, verse 3. For the lips of the adulterous woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. Verse 4. But in the end she is as bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. So, for this video, I was going to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. From a Christian with maybe a little bit of a conservative perspective. This is a Christian realistic gamer. Okay, so I don't know. I've been trying different strategies out. I might let's just take a look at one of these articles, I guess, first. Yeah, it lays some structure down. I might watch a video here too. Let's take a look. So I don't always agree with everything on here, but well, we'll see what happens. So I believe this is from Game Fugues. So is the game heavy on biblical symbolism and allegories? Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is actually the Xeno games typically borrow from Gnostic beliefs more than they do Christian ones. You know how the Christians like to barge into other religions, then be like, your gods aren't gods, they're just arrogant a-holes pretending to be gods. Our God is the one true God. The Gnostics believe in that, but towards the Christian God. Okay, let's see here. The original Japanese name for Elysium roughly translates to paradise or Eden. Then there's all the 7 deadly sin motif. Alright, so I'm gonna watch a trailer from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Oh yeah, by the way, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the only game I really know out of the... I think there's 3 of them. There might be actually be another one out there too. I know a little bit about the third one, but let's just take a look. Oh yeah, I'll also just say, you know, fair use is the thing, so there is that. But yeah, by the way, it's raining out where I'm at, so if you hear that, it's just, you know, the rain. I guess, you know, God controls the weather, so it's completely out of my control. Let's see here. So I guess, you know, like one thing on me, I'll just get out of the... Oh yeah, so I'll also say this. I guess, you know, like one reason I make these kind of videos is it's just part of my channel is called, like, I generally call it like a Christian wisdom discernment ministry. it's sort of just it's supposed to like help the Christian faith in a sense that it just kind of reveals, like, it judges it and helps discern between two different realities, like what is and what isn't, what you should or what you shouldn't do. I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, you're gonna have to do whatever you're gonna have to do. It's between God and you and God, what you do or don't do. You sow your seeds and you reap what you sow. You have to answer to He Himself in heaven. So, but I mean, I just give some advice or some wisdom on what you can or you can't, or it just kind of like it. I might give those some like tips or some pointers of what more positive things are, or maybe just reveal some of the bad things, or just give some it just kind of like, it's like a lot most fantasy at large, and frankly not even fantasy but just pretty much all entertainment in general is pretty morally gray for the most part and pretty subjective. So I kind of just go through all the mud or whatever. I just try to from like a Christian point of view, like put some biblical perspective on it, so that people can try and make a little bit better of a decision or not. I mean, I don't want to tell people what they can or can't do, but I mean, it's just, it's just something like some wisdom or something. All right. So I think one of the first points that I'll seriously, I went to that trailer, obviously. I also had that from the Game Fugue. I guess I should do that. Before I do something else. So, like the trailer, it shows the game. It has, it's obviously, it's a fictional world, right? I generally would consider it to be like a neutral world. I generally think that most of Xenoblade Chronicles, compared to a lot of the other stuff out there, I consider it to be more of like a neutral world, like a lot of science fictions and stuff. I mean, it's not like if you compared Xenoblade Chronicles to like, I don't know, like The Witcher or something. It's just like one is more like, I generally probably view this as more like a light version, like a spiritual light version of fantasy instead of like a spiritual darkness version of fantasy. So it's like, there really isn't like, it's not like every single character out there is like, there's like, like witchcraft left and right, and there's all sorts of just, demonic, satanic things like left and right everywhere you go. And in Xenoblade, it's not like that. It's a pretty neutral society. It's not like good necessarily, but it's not like really inherently evil most of the time either. So I mean, there is that, and it does have some it has some themes and it has some references that are pretty shady, but frankly, that's pretty much everything nowadays. I think it talks about like some like, I can call it like a Yggdrasil tree or something, and it has some concepts of some false deities and some stuff. There's obviously stuff you got to be careful about. I mean, I generally don't know if I really recommend most neutral or fantasy stuff, but I mean, you can get a great story out of it at the same time. And let me just double check here. They still have that up somewhere? No, probably not. Okay, well, what I learned from that forum. Let's see, what was that forum about again? Oh, yeah, it talked about the whole like Gnostic religion, like how it tries to show Christianity from a Gnostic point of view. Actually, that's actually a really good point. Really good point they made. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about making a video at one point, but will I ever get around to it? That's another question. So I guess I'll just talk about a little bit here. So there's like this video game, for example, right? Xenoblade. Now I really only know the second game, but so in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they have a being that's described and known as, I guess, like, quote unquote, it's called the Architect, and according to their lore and the story, the way they made their game, the Architect is kind of supposed to be like, obviously it's not a real world, right? This being known as the Architect, well, in holiness, is supposed to represent God on some sense. Now, I don't know that much about who this being is, Like he's generally described as like masculine. He's kind of like he's supposed to be like the deity of their world, or like their creator. So there's also Dragon Age, which has a similar concept. The being in their world, quote unquote, it's supposed to be like, it's called things known as like the Maker. Also, in holiness, supposed to represent God in their world. And like even in The Witcher, their world is supposed to be like an alternative. Like The Witcher, again, why I think one of the reasons The Witcher is very gray in my opinion is The Witcher is supposed to be like an alternative version to Earth in a sense. So it's set pretty heavily like our Earth in a lot of ways, except for there's some dark twists to it. So they also have like, I guess call them like quote unquote gods or whatever. And a lot of these worlds, I think I don't know, I think I might have talked about this a little bit at one point before. I'll just talk about it again though. I think they describe them, I think this is probably known as, here, let me take a look. Myself personally, I support Christianity, the ancient roots of Judaism to the modern day Christianity. I think it's known as theism, or to be a theist. I believe that's more or less what Christianity is. Let's see here. What's the other word? I think it's called deism. Let me just look it up here, see what the dictionary tells me. Or the online dictionary. Okay, so this is like the idea of what those three Pacific series, obviously I mentioned, they're just more obvious ones. It's called deism, the D. Belief in the existence of a supreme being, specifically of a creator who does not intervene in the universe. So, let's see here. Let's just read it out. The term is used chiefly of an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th centuries that accepted the existence of a creator on the basis of reason, but rejected belief in a supernatural deity who interacts with humankind. Okay, so I might as well this is one of the other things I actually just have pinned. I'll just talk about this. I'm going to go back to that other point in a second. I'll let it, so Pyra is kind of a controversial topic. I mean, so according to the lore, or like, like the canon of the universe, she's supposed to be like here it shows like, like 500 years old, maybe like 1,000 years old. And then like she kind of looks maybe at times, which is kind of shady and sketchy, maybe like she's like 16, 17 years old. And frankly, she probably, in my opinion, is more like, in her 20s. But it's kind of like, like the whole, I think Japanese culture or whatever. I mean, I guess like here's a picture of her here. I mean, she, her name's Pyra. She turns into this blonde girl or whatever too. It's kind of shady and it's kind of sketchy. I mean, the lore says she's like 500 to 1,000 years old. I can't remember exactly how old she's supposed to be. Maybe I think she's supposed to be like 800 years old or something. I mean, she could sketchily look like she's maybe 16 or 17. I probably, just to make myself at least feel more comfortable, I'm just going to say that she's like in her 20s. I mean, the lore says she's like 800 years old. I'm just going to say she's like 20, in her 20s, or maybe she's like 20 or 23 or something. Okay, like if you look at like the picture of her, now I know some people might get triggered when I talked about like Tifa. I'm not sure how old Tifa's technically supposed to be. You could say that maybe she looks like she's a stripper. I'm not saying she is a stripper, but I mean look if you look at the picture like this. Yeah, I don't even know what kind of perverse pictures I'm gonna get out on here. There's nothing too bad. I think I have safe search on. She's depicted extremely sexually, which is honestly, it's pretty sus sometimes. Now I don't know. I have nothing against like a beautiful woman or anything. I'm just gonna say, because the canon says she's 800 years old. I'm just gonna say she's like a 20 or something, or 23 or something. I don't know what the true correct answer is, but I'm just gonna say she's like 23 years old, because there's no actual definitive answer. So I mean, obviously, that's I cannot remember at the top of my head what her name is supposed to be called when she turns, okay, obviously there's some spoilers here too, but she turns into this blonde colored lady. That's like her true form. Pyra is like her, kind of like her like earthly form. And then she turns into her true form, but she's turned into this blonde girl. So there's that, obviously. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. So then there's also the idea of deism. We'll go back to that point. So yeah, like that's what a lot of more fictional, or like you could say fantasy. I think fantasy is just too broad of a term. There's there's a handful of different genres. There's fiction, which is generally just neutral across the board. It could be set in the real world. It could be something else. There's a term called folklore, which, to be honest, The Witcher 3, or just, I don't know, there's other Witcher games, but Witcher 3 is the only really popular, successful one, really. I think it's probably more known, I think probably would call that, oh yeah, there's also fairy tale. There's fiction, there's fairy tale, there's folklore. They have, I guess they all start with the letter F, for whatever reasons. I mean, I don't know the languages that well why these things are. If someone who actually listens to this and knows this information, go ahead and you can write that in the comments. Maybe I can read that, learn something about it. Let's see here, and there's also I guess I've learned this new term. I've been using it a lot lately, but it's called fantastical, or you fantasticalize something. So I mean, you can break kind of like, it's like fantasy doesn't have to always just be fantasy isn't inherently evil necessarily either. It's just as a Christian, there's a lot of really bad, naughty stuff in fantasy. So I mean, that's a thing, right? And so yeah, I mean, okay, so I guess the idea of deism, that shows there's there's a being in Xenoblade. He's known as, like, quote unquote, the architect. He supposedly just created their world and created their universe, and then just kind of like snapped his fingers or whatever, and just kind of poofed himself away or whatever. Or, he created their little universe, and then he just kind of just left him there. He's like, eh. That's the same kind of way with Dragon Age. Like, you ever played that game? That game's generally regarded as like dark fantasy. It's probably, on my opinion, that's probably like one of the single-handed most dark, evil video games. Like, of all the genres you can probably find, Dragon Age is probably like the most dark you'll ever find. I honestly think it's probably even more darker than The Witcher, more darker than Skyrim. I mean, it feels good to your flesh, but it's definitely really, really dark. So they have a being known as quote unquote the Maker, and he's depicted as, he created, like, obviously this isn't real. I only worship God in heaven. I don't worship false deities or whatever. But he's supposed to be the depiction of God also in their world. He sits on, like, their throne, and he created their universe. And then I guess, like, he just, for whatever the reasons may or may not be, he just kind of disappeared, or he just decided he's just gonna stop. He's gonna stop interacting with their world, and he just kind of leaves. And they see, like, all there's also, like, a point. Now Xenoblade, I don't think Xenoblade Chronicles really has, like, a sin necessarily in their world. Dragon Age, the humanity sins basically in Dragon Age. According to their lore, I think they create these beings known as they're called the Darkspawn. There's also like an arch demon dragon, or I'm not sure what it's called, like an arch nemesis or something, some kind of a big giant. I mean, obviously the name of the game is called Dragon Age, so you fight a dragon as the final boss. But these Darkspawn come out of the world because people sinned. And the same thing with, like, The Witcher. I mean, obviously this is a video about Xenoblade, but it's also just a Christian discernment. And the same thing with The Witcher, where humanity committed sin, and basically their gods or whatever, they curse humanity, and they just like screw you, or like F you. I'm not even sure if you can say it's like deism. It's just like they're so-called deities or whatever. They hate humanity. and they basically just leave you here to the consequences of your actions, and just basically they up and abandon it. Or if they do judge, they're like just vicious, ruthless tyrants. And like you saw, like if you see the intro to Witcher 3, it shows like like Yennefer and her vanity, she wanted her magic, so she used her sorcery, which is like extremely evil. And like the so-called gods or whatever, they've forsaken them. And then so like another example, I probably would argue, of deism, although this technically isn't necessarily deism, but even no, technically this is set in the real world, so it's actually set within Christianity. But there's a Horizon Zero Dawn. It shows a lot of like the concept of like probably of like a almost like a deistic sort of society, where so okay, obviously there's tons of spoilers if I didn't already say that a bunch of times. Horizon Zero Dawn is set in the year about 3000, so it's like 1000 years from now, and they kind of lose. A lot of people lose their mind to like their own like pagan themes or whatever. They lose our world as we know it, and they kind of just, well, again, everything that we had once before is just completely gone. So people just sort of hard reset, and it's like, I mean, I'm not saying Christianity doesn't still exist within it, and because God is mentioned a handful of times in Horizon Zero Dawn, but it's not really. It's a post-apocalyptic world. So I mean, it has some like, what's the word, like I'm losing like deism, but like it's a world where a lot of people believe that like the deities, or well, in this case, obviously set within the real world, in holiness, God Himself, the Father, Son, and Spirit, the one God in three persons, they kind of just believe that they're forsaken in a sense, or even what I was really trying to get at before. Now that I remember, it's like the idea that what am I trying to say? That people kind of they make up like their own religion, and they start following their own religion, and they create their own version of their deities or whatever, and they kind of just lose their mind to like basically full-scale paganism. And I guess like in those all these four games, that's kind of the way that like these worlds are. So if that kind of sets, maybe this kind of sets it up a little bit for the idea of what Xenoblade is. All right, let's just take a look at. I'm gonna look at a video or something here. Okay, so obviously there's fair use. Now I haven't watched this guy in a long time. I actually really like this guy. His name is Happy Console Gamer. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. I'm gonna be honest too. I really like this guy a lot. I don't know if he's a Christian. I don't really know that much about him, but I think his. Okay, you can see a picture in the bottom right. I think his name is his wife's name is Kim. I'll have to remember that guy's name, but I definitely like the guy. So I mean, if you want to go check him out. I'm not sure I can't remember. I think I probably watched this video before. Let's just take a look and see what he says.
First impressions of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and there will be no spoilers in this. I don't even know if I want to show any footage. I think I've shown footage and people get angry about it, and I'm only about 10 hours into the game, but enough where I can just come and give you some early impressions on it. And reviews are embargoed till the 30th, and I also have an unboxing of the special edition that is also embargoed to the 30th. So when you see that video, I shot it a week ago, so I've had the game for about a week. And what can I say? I was thinking about it this afternoon, what I initially wanted to say. I am so excited for some kid this Christmas to open this up Christmas morning. They get Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and they play it, and they have the most magical Christmas ever because the game is that cool. This is the big RPG from Nintendo and Monolith Studios. They brought us other games in the past, like the original Xenoblade Chronicles, and then obviously Xenoblade Chronicles X. which came out a couple of years ago. How is it? It's really good. It's really good. I'm so happy to come in and say that. This is the big game that so many of my friends online are talking about. Everybody's hyped about it who has a Switch. People are want to buy a Switch to play this game. And I'm so happy I can come in and say the game is really good. What makes this game so good? There's a lot to get into here. The huge open worldness of this, and this is not a surprise coming from Monolith. They helped design the map layout of Hyrule for Breath of the Wild, and you can see that here in the environments. When you go into a town, I'm going to use this term a couple of times as well, very overwhelming. There is so much stuff to do in one town. There's so many people, there's so many side quests, so many things you can buy and sell to upgrade your characters, and that's something else that's funny. Even 6 hours into the game, even 10 hours into the game has such complex levels to it, and I'm meaning in the structure of the gameplay and all the things you can do with your characters. You're still getting tutorials 10 hours into the game, and
okay, so I'll just stop there for a second. So one point I'm going to say is, like, regardless of whatever I say or do on this channel, no matter what it is or isn't, no matter what the game is, if you be happy, right? The biblical virtue of joy. You should find joy in your heart and soul, and then take that joy and glorify God with it. Give thanks to God for the good things that He offers you in your life. Life is brutal and hard too. It's okay to be happy. If you want to enjoy a game, even if I criticize it, no matter what no matter what this guy says or the million other people out there, if you really want to play a game, I mean, presuming it's not like what you're doing isn't like openly like, satanic or something, or blatantly anti-biblical, or just like evil. Just if you want to play your game or whatever, and just enjoy it or be happy, right? And play your video game, enjoy it, right? If you have a good time, and just be happy about it. And no one ever knows or hears and sees it other than God, and you and God, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So I try not to make points where I just piss off half of the community or whatever in the game. So I know a lot of people have the same opinion I do. Okay, so I'll just give it here. People be mad. I know people are gonna be real mad when I say this. I hate the combat system in this game. I know there's people who agree with me. I think this guy here, he gets mad at this game too. There's this guy, like one of the champions of this, hating this combat system. I think his name's called like Woody or Wood. What's his name? Wood something, or Wood Hawker, or Hawker Wood or something. What's his name of his channel called? Beat 'em ups. Yeah, he focuses a lot on Nintendo. He makes like a whole video talking about how he hates the combat system in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then you should go play that other game. What's the name of that game? YS Lacrimosa of Lena, I think, or Lacrimosa of Lena. I'll be real with you. I really just don't like the combat system in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I don't like a lot of the systems in the game. I know this makes people mad, but I just don't like that. But I'm also going to tell you that I think the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is like phenomenal at the same time. So if you don't like, so like the community, I'm obviously I'm a very divisive person at times. If you don't like the controls of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and you just like hate like the in-game systems or whatever, I mean, obviously I love RPG games. I mean, my old username for my channel, was called RPG Guy. I mean, obviously I like RPGs. If you really don't like the system, what I recommend, what you should just do, is go on like YouTube. Now, obviously, like there's the mainstream person that I always watch. I like to watch, but there's also, if I try to find someone smaller if you can. But just like watch a game movie of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. in my opinion, it's actually one of the best versions of all the JRPGs out there. I mean, there's only a handful of JRPGs that will rival it. So it's really good. It's really well written, really well voice acted. I just love the story. I might have to go back and watch it myself. I mean, obviously, there's some shady stuff to it or whatever, but it's a fantasy fictional story. It's pretty neutral. It's pretty tame, pretty chill compared to what you could find out there. I don't know if I'm going to recommend watching it or not. Let's just go watch a different video. I definitely like this guy. So, yeah, go check that guy out if you want. Let's just see what else I can find here. Okay, so as I said before, there's fair use. I'm not trying to steal from anything. So I think this might be that video. I know this pisses off a lot of people, but it's okay. Oh, whoops. Let's just watch some of it. He's kind of immature, like a child sometimes, but I do like him. Maybe I'm a little bit of a child too. Let's just let's just see what happens.
I have been playing a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I have decided that I don't want to review it. This isn't an easy video to make. In fact, it's probably going to be one of the hardest not review videos I've ever tried to make. But I have had so many people message me saying, hey, I don't want to buy this game until you've talked about it. I want to know if it's worth buying. Please talk about this game. I've had tweets, YouTube comments. I even mentioned in a video that I was going to talk about it, and people have been going back to that video and commenting, hey, when are you going to talk about it? The reason why I don't want to talk about it is because I think it's a good game, but I'm not really enjoying it. And I want to try and talk about that and explain my reasons why. But another reason why I don't want to review the game is because a game like this, a huge RPG like this, you really have to finish it or at least get halfway through before you can talk about it and really appreciate the scope of the game. And I don't think I'm gonna even get halfway through the game because I'm not enjoying it. You can't play an RPG for 10 to 15 hours and review it. You got to put at least 30, 40, 50 in, and it's something that I'm just not prepared to do on this game. Okay, I'm stalling because I don't want to talk about the things that I don't like because I don't necessarily want to get hated on, but let's just dive into it. I do not enjoy the combat. I don't. And I'm not saying that it's bad combat because so many people are praising it. So many people are going crazy gaga for it and think it's the best thing since sliced bread. But for me, I just think it's really slow and boring. And I know you unlock more blades and more abilities because I've been doing that, but every time I unlock something that I think is going to add to the combat and add to what it is I'm doing every time I get into a battle, it just adds another button I need to wait for. The combat is all auto attacks. So you walk up to a battle, you press A to start it, and you auto attack. And then you build up your arts over time. And how you use an art is you press a single button that's mapped to that art. So as soon as you start a battle, you do nothing right away. You just kind of wait for a little bit. And after about 10-15 seconds, you get to press a button. And then you press that button, and then if you time it right, you'll charge up your special. And you essentially just do that over and over. There is a ton of things you have to think about around that, like element effects and then working with your party and your team to time everything right. And I get that there's a lot that goes into it, but essentially at the base of it all, you are waiting and auto attacking. And I have found
okay. I just found that. I'll just talk about it a little bit. I mean, it's better to have the actual person say it than me. So one thing I'll say is I absolutely love exploring worlds, fighting against these fantastical versions of creatures, leveling up, picking up the loot and stuff. I love that, and that's one thing I love about this game. I mean, I might just go through and play this game. I'm not gonna probably do the story or anything. I mean, I don't know. I like going around just. That's one thing I like doing in RPG games, just kind of grinding, especially if it's a fun, good grind. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, it's, again, in my opinion, it's a pretty neutral world, a pretty neutral story. So I guess for the whole discernment sense, you do got to be careful. There is a considerable amount of sexual content in it, and I mean, there's a lot of it. I mean, some of it's obvious, some of it's a little bit less. They have maybe I can find it. Actual no actual sex scene will be shown here, but this is I think this is an important scene that it's important to know what is or what isn't. Let's just take a look here. Obviously, there's fair use.
This brings back memories of the first time we stayed in Morag. The water here is great. Just melted the weariness away. I can see. This is very distinct.
First time I've been here. But hang on. Is this place unisex?
Sadly, it is not. Our sex times for men and women.
Ah, right. That sort of system.
Too bad for you. Seems now is right time for men to go bathe. What lads say? We'll go, yes?
What?
All men here. No need to fear nudity. You want all four of us to bathe together? Of course, yes. Or is there some problem?
No, me and Rex are game, but Morag,
You three go on ahead. I shall abstain for now. Oh, that's so reserved. Come on, all go together.
is it possible that Tora doesn't know Morag is a woman? Well, it's not like I can tell a not-on woman apart, except from the clothing. And with Morag wearing men's clothes, maybe it's no wonder the little guy got confused. Or maybe he just doesn't really care one way or the other.
Morag, it's okay. Take a moment to breathe, then come with. I refuse. Look, Tora understands. Lots of knock-on not-like parts too. Maybe Morag afraid Morag drown. But hygiene very important. After soap to get nice and clean. I do like water and I am not filthy. But on this matter I will not budge. Oh, how friends Morag be so stubborn with hot spring right before eyes. Come on, Morag. Drop clothes like man and jump in hot spring. Tora not have all day. You know I'm a good. Don't you?
Okay, like, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like a little bit of like a sexually charged tension scene. Just stuff like that. And there's like Rex waking up and like having like, Pyra's like boobs in his face or something. And there's a whole bunch of sexual themes and sexual jokes. And obviously, I mean, I'm not saying that like sex doesn't exist, in real life, or all these problems aren't a real thing either. But I mean, it's something I feel like you got to be, you got to be aware of at least. And yeah, I mean, there's and also there's the idea. I guess this is kind of like a Christian theme, but it's also kind of sketchy. So the idea of Xenoblade Chronicles is that you have like a human, or you have a humanoid person of some sort. Then you have what is known as a I guess they're called well, obviously the name of the game is called Xenoblade. You get these blades, right? They're basically just like a soul. You have a soul that you carry with you. It's like you said, this little link. It's like linked to your heart or linked to your soul, and it it's like linked to you, and it fights for you. It's like kind of part of like a second version of you that exists within the material world. And I mean, obviously that's a little bit of a, as a Christian especially, that's a bit of a sketchy thing. You got to use some kind of discernment. It's like the idea of there's this picture showing maybe a little bit more. See how there's like a little bit of a, well, like Pyra is Rex's like soul, like a soul soldier, or like a blade or something. And then there's like each of the main characters have a soul or whatever they carry with them. and they fight with them. And it's pretty sketchy and pretty shady, but I don't know if there's anything inherently evil about it. I mean, obviously I wouldn't say that's like, something that we as humans really actually have or not, but it's something you should at least be aware of, or at least maybe think about it a little bit. The idea of having like a soul blade, or maybe it's like, maybe some people might even look at it like this person is like basically like your slave or something that you carry bound to you. There's many different points of view, but it's definitely something I think you gotta be careful of, and there's also like there's a lot of stuff that could be regarded as pagan. So you should be aware of it. I mean, use discernment. Think about these different things. It's like like even in here, like Pyra walks around in like almost a borderline string bikini at times. I mean, I definitely think that's definitely that's one of the major things of Xenoblade as a Christian. There's a lot of sexual themes. There's a lot of baths. There's a lot of partial nudity. Not even partial nudity, but like just the idea that it's all sorts of nonsense. And Pyra's age is slightly sketchy. Maybe she's in her 20s. She's supposed to be like 1,000 years old. And there's a lot of I don't know. There's some shady stuff. And there's kind of a shady creation story. You just gotta keep these things in mind. And but yeah, I think that's probably gonna be it for now. I mean, I might make another video on this at some point. But thanks. God is good.